Welcome to this week's edition of 3-Minute Metaphors. That is where I explain an internal experience of the ADHD brain in a metaphor in 3 minutes or less. This topic is really kind of important to me at the moment, and I think important to lots of people with ADHD, because it's one of the natures of the, I'm reluctant to call it a condition and a disorder because I don't really think about it that way, but it is one of the defining features of having an ADHD brain that is very confusing and baffling and doesn't make any sense, and I think can lead to a lot of misunderstanding about the disorder. And at the same time also, though it's baffling, has some elements of relatability for people that don't have ADHD, and so can be easily dismissed as like, yeah, but everybody struggles with this. And yes, people do struggle with elements of this, but the very nature in which the ADHD brain and nervous system is wired means that there are very specific ways in which this is a challenge for us. And so I want to talk about this in metaphor today. So I'll do the metaphor and then I'm going to give you some absolutely banging quotes that I read about this today that just cured my soul, because I think it's one of those aspects of ADHD that, especially if you've gone undiagnosed for so long, I didn't get diagnosed till I was 30, really contributes to a destruction of your self-esteem. It's not a rosy topic, let's not beat about the bush. Okay, I'm going to be honest, this is the second time that I'm doing this because I just spent a lot of time like gesticulating, jamming a key into a box, and I'm not sure I really got anywhere, so let's try again. Okay, 1, 2, 3 minutes, let's go. So I imagine it like this. In your brain, there is your executive function. So that's the aspects of your brain like working memory, planning, organising, everything that basically your brain needs to do to be able to plan and execute on a task. And yes, that is well established that is an issue in ADHD. Rachel from the Editing Beanbag here. I just wanted to jump in to explain a little bit more about executive function. I didn't really mention most of what it is, which I think is important for the rest of this metaphor. So it is about planning and prioritising and organising yourself. But executive function is also about your ability to get motivated, to pay attention, to sustain your attention, to not get frustrated quickly, to not be distracted by your emotions, self-monitoring, staying on track and following instructions. So there's loads of stuff there. I wanted to just jump in and mention it because it's relevant for the rest of this metaphor in terms of the specific conditions in which some of those things are activated and some of those things just aren't. But there's something that kind of is seemingly unusual about it, which is that box is like locked. It's under lock and key inside of your head. So a lot of the time, those executive functions just don't seem to be working properly. Like, you can't use them in the way that you want to use them. And everybody has like a set of keys that will unlock those executive functions and will help them to focus and get motivated and concentrate. But the keys that you've been given, or the keys that you think that you need to use, you're constantly jamming inside the lock, but it doesn't seem to get the box open. And it doesn't make any sense, because when you look to people around you who have the same set of keys, they just seem to be able to put it in the lock, pop it open, and then look at you like, well, I managed to get it done here, so I don't really see what the issue is. But then there are certain conditions, and I don't really know what they are, or I didn't know what they were, where sometimes the box would just like pop open and you'd be able to access all of these ability to get started on a task and concentrate for an extended period of time and just do things that sometimes when the box is locked you literally cannot do, but it always seemed random and there wasn't a pattern. So I'm looking at all of these keys and I'm like, well, these 3 keys here don't seem to work properly, but it just seemed to unlock itself at some point, so I don't understand what are the keys I need to use to be able to unlock this thing. Sometimes you manage to get inside the box, but then something happens and the box suddenly shuts and locks behind you and you're like, well shit, because I could do this like 10 minutes ago, but now I can't do it anymore, so how am I supposed to take that? And then you get diagnosed with ADHD as an adult and you realise that there are specific reasons why your box is under lock and key, and that maybe the keys that you've been handed and the keys that lots of people around you use are not the right ones for you. But then becomes a weird journey because you've got to try and figure out which of the keys unlocks the box, under what conditions, and you learn that actually part of ADHD is having an interest-based nervous system. So the keys that you need are interest, challenge, novelty, passion, a do or die deadline, or for me, shame. A massive unlocker of that executive function before I got diagnosed was a sense of shame and inadequacy that I had to overcompensate. And so that's a really confusing one, because the shame key used to work before, where I'd put the key in the box and I'd be like, I gotta do this stuff. And I might feel incredibly burnt out and not great about myself, but at least I was getting the stuff done. But then when you realise that the shame key hasn't been serving you very well, the shame key doesn't work as well anymore, so then you feel like you've got less ways in which you can unlock the box, but in reality you've just got some different ways, some different keys hanging around in the back of your brain somewhere that you need to find to unlock that box and build a life where those keys are better matched to the box more of the time, right? I'll put some links, as always, to Additude, because it is the best resource for ADHD ever, in the description, that refer to some of the stuff that I've spoken about. But there was just one quote that really spoke to me this morning that actually inspired this video. 2 actually. One which is, people talk about ADHD like there's something wrong with the ADHD nervous system. That's not the case. ADHD stems from a nervous system that works perfectly well under its own set of rules, the correct set of keys. And the second quote I love said, "People with ADHD know they are bright and clever, but they are never sure whether their abilities will show up when they need them." That is how I feel furiously trying to open that locked box. So if you relate to this message, if that metaphor makes sense to you, I would encourage you to think about these things. This are the questions that I'm trying to figure out at the moment, which is, which keys are the ones that unlock that box? What conditions do I need to create to make it easier for those keys to unlock the box? And which keys have I been jamming in that lock for years of my life that no longer work and I just need to toss by the wayside and completely forget about? And finally, how can I shape my life in a way that means that I can use the keys that work best for me more often? Let me know in the comments your answers to those questions. I'd be super intrigued to hear about how you're finding this journey, because I know lots of people are on a similar kind of path to me trying to work all of this out. So let me know in the comments. If you haven't subscribed already, please do, and I'll see you again next week.